Jamunatiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Astutra Sapti Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Isi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 11, Chapter 7, verse number 50. Gunair Gunan Upadate Yata Kalam Vimuchati Nateshu Yujate Yogi Gobirga Iva Gopati Gunair Gunanupadate Yata Kalam Vimunchati Nateshu Yujate Yogi Gobirga Iva Gopati Gunair Gunanupadate Yata Kalam Vimunchati Nateshu yujate yogi Gopirga eva gopati Gunanupadate Yatha kalam vimuchyati Nateshu yujate gopi Gopirga eva gopati Gunanupadate Yatha kalam vimuchyati Nateshu yujate yogi Gopirga eva gopati Gunanupadate Yatha kalam vimuchyati Nateshu yujate yogi Gopirga eva gopati Gunanupadate Yatha kalam vimuchyati Nateshu yujate yogi Gopirga eva gopati Gunanupadate Yatha kalam vimuchyati Nateshu yujate yogi Gopirga eva gopati. Gunai, by his senses. Gunan, material sense objects. Upadate, accepts. Yatha kalam, at the proper time. Vimunchati, gives them up. No, he does not. Teshu, in them. Yujate, become entangled. Yogi, a self-realized sage. Gopi, by his rays. Ga, bodies of water. Eva, as. Gopati, the sun. Just as the sun evaporates large quantities of water by its potent rays and later returns the water to the earth in the form of rain, similarly, a saintly person accepts all types of material objects with his material senses, and at the appropriate time, when the proper person has approached him to request them, he returns such material objects. Thus, both in accepting and giving up the objects of the senses, he is not entangled. Repeat after me. Just as the sun evaporates large quantities of water by its potent rays, and later returns the water to the earth in the form of rain. Similarly, a saintly person accepts all types of material objects with his material senses, and at the appropriate time, when the proper person has approached him to request them, he returns such material objects. Thus, both in accepting and giving up the objects of the senses, he is not entangled. Prabhupada's purport. A Krishna-conscious person never feels proprietorship over the opulences entrusted to him by Lord Krishna for spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. The devotees of Lord Krishna should not merely accumulate material wealth, but should distribute the opulences of Lord Krishna in such a way that the Krishna consciousness movement spreads unlimitedly. This is a lesson to be learned from the sun. Om Ekantvarandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tati Svaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sihitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. So, if Krishna is to come forward, प्रभु जी अंग्रेजी में क्लास देंगे, किसी को अनुवाद चाहिए हिंदी में? सबको अंग्रेजी समझ में आता है?
It's a great honor to be here today and speak to you all the nice devotees here in the Newtown Temple. It's a fantastic temple, and all the devotees here are great souls. And yesterday Mukunda Leela and Mother Devahuti, they took me to Uttadanga, where Prabhupada met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj and for the first time, and talk about humbling experiences. It's to be in the presence of Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj there is I'm a poor, suffering, conditioned soul born in the United States. The United States is a pretty crazy place. It's a crazy place, and that's where I grew up for the first 18 years before I met the devotees. And so I came from out of nowhere, literally, spiritually nowhere, and to come in contact with Prabhupada and all his devotees and be allowed to serve in Prabhupada's mission is an unimaginable honor and glory and wonderful position. And it was really brought home to me. And of course, I'm used to being in the temple for many years and serving the deities, but to come to India, to Kolkata, and go to these temples, these beautiful temples, and to Uttadanga, it's just I won't say overwhelming. I was still standing up and walking around, but spiritually, it's overwhelming. It's the most humbling experience that I've had since getting initiated originally. So that was a very humbling experience. And anyway, yes, just want to tell you how much I appreciate it and was amazed by being in that place. And all the devotees here are so fortunate. We're all so fortunate. And anyway, this purport is a verse in purport. Prabhupada got the instruction from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj at his first meeting, just before he even got all the way to his feet. After coming in and offering obeisances, he got his first instruction to make himself a very good English preacher and preach in the English-speaking countries. And so that's Krishna consciousness preaching Krishna consciousness is like that. Of course, Prabhupada is a pure devotee, Nitya Siddha, sent specifically by Krishna to our material world just to spread Krishna consciousness. But all of us were coming out of ignorance, definitely me. And but that's the nature of Krishna conscious preaching. It's very direct, very straightforward, very no nonsense. Like Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, preaching to Arjuna. The first thing he told them was and the way, while speaking learned words, you're speaking like a fool. And that's the nature of preaching in the material world. You have to be very direct. It's like I know, because about 20 years ago, I had a couple of heart attacks, and so I almost left my body both times from them. And then, so afterwards, I was recovered, and I was walking around fine, doing all kinds of things and everything, but I was still doing one of the worst things you can do for your heart, is overeating. It puts an extra burden on your heart to pump the blood and digest the food. So I was with my sister at her house, and she's a nurse, very experienced nurse for 50 years. And one day I ate way too much at her house, and I told her what I had done, and she looked at me in the eye and she said, if you keep eating too much, you're going to die. And I knew she was right. And I ate way too much, and I used to eat way too much all the time. And if you're young and healthy, living in a temple, I ate too much all the time, but it didn't really matter. I just take a nap and just get up and go about my duties again. But after having heart attacks, you can't do that anymore. But I was doing it, and she just looked at me, and with all her 50 years of nursing experience, and she said, if you keep eating too much, you're going to die. And I knew she was right. And so I stopped eating way too much. But that's the nature of preaching in the material world. Everyone is in a desperate situation in the material world. There's no safe situation here. Of course, taking birth in India, and especially being raised in a very pious or Vaishnava family, it's the highest birth in the universe, and is very wonderful. But it can be misused also. It's not that you automatically become a pure devotee and just go back to Godhead by dint of taking birth in Bharatvarsha. But it is a huge advantage, a huge head start. But even here, or definitely everywhere in the material world, we're in a desperate situation. We're suffering birth, death, old age, disease, and death repeatedly, birth after birth, and trying to enjoy in the material world, trying to be the independent enjoyer, and trying to think we have some control over the material energy, and we're very, and the nature of Maya, the nature of Maya's illusion is that we're forced to think like that. It's not like an accident that everyone thinks in exactly the same way. It's not an accident that everyone wants to enjoy sense gratification, that everyone wants to be independent. We're like that because we're in Maya. We're in an illusion. Only Krishna is the supreme independent enjoyer, and we're all the eternal servants of Krishna. We're very tiny. We're so small. We're so insignificant, and so the point is that this is a preaching movement. This verse and purport are about preaching, and this is the principle that the Prabhupada used, that the principle of yukta vairagya, that we can take. The curtain's going to open. We can take everything in the material world and use it for preaching for Krishna. We can use everything for Krishna, and then that's the perfection of that. If we take everything and use it for myself, then we're entangled. But I saw this billboard on the way here from Mukundalila's temple, and Alipur temple, and it was a big. I saw this billboard on the way here, and billboards, everything, it's all about sense gratification. And there was there's this really handsome Indian man, and a beautiful, maybe he's a Bollywood star, I don't know, but a beautiful beard and beautiful hair and beautiful suit, Westerns, sort of Indian Western style suit, and just looking so like self-confident and self-assured, and the only writing on the billboard was success. I don't know what they were advertising, but I don't think it said what they were advertising. But anyway, that's the material. It's all over the world. That's the idea in the material world, is if you're handsome and intelligent and you got it together, you got money, and you're good looking, and you're getting plenty of sense gratification, then you're a success. And that's what life is for. Life is for becoming a success like that. But those are the gateways to hell. Bhagavad Gita says the gateways to hell are lust, anger, and greed. And so in the material world, like definitely in the United States, if someone gets angry, people get in the United States, people get angry. I haven't lived in India, but I think it's a lot less in India. But people get angry so quickly, and it's like they have road rage sometimes where people shoot each other from one car to another. I'm not kidding. It doesn't happen a lot, but it happens. And people just get angry so easily, and they don't think, oh, I shouldn't be getting angry. That's a gateway to hell. They think, oh, I'm angry. Yeah, I'm angry. And I'm mad. What's it to you? I'm mad. And they think it's a good thing. And there's a statement, a saying in the United States now, maybe it's all over the world, that greed is good. Greed is a good thing. And lust, of course, everything is about lust everywhere in the material world. So the very things that are the gateways to hell are the things that are glorified and seen as the purpose of life, the goal of life in material illusion. So that's tragic. And it's a tragic situation, and everyone is in the grips of that same mentality that is leading everyone to hellish conditions. So preaching Lord Chaitanya was extremely direct. Krishna with Arjuna on the battlefield was very direct. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj was a very direct, very bold preacher. He was known as Singha Guru, and people were afraid of him because he was so strict and so demanding. And Prabhupada was like that too. Of course, Prabhupada, when he came to the United States and began preaching, he didn't exhibit that face very often. He was talking to all brand new young people who didn't know anything. Nobody in the United States at that time, there were yoga teachers, yoga things. Everybody knew something about merging and yoga. People knew something, and they would read some translations of the Upanishads or the Bhagavad Gita as it isn't, and whatever they would read. And people knew, a lot of people, the younger people mostly, knew something, but really they didn't know anything, because it was worse than, in a way, it's worse than knowing only a little bit. To be misled and to think in a wrong way is even worse than being completely ignorant, because then you have to unlearn what you've already supposedly know about India, about spiritual life, and you have to give it up. And that's the advice by Prabhupada Saraswati too. When you go preaching, you should take a straw between your teeth and falling down at the feet of a person. You say, oh, you're so knowledgeable, you're such a great man, you're so intelligent. And Prabhupada said, you flatter them like anything. And then you say, now just forget everything you know and just apply your intelligence to the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then you can actually learn something. So anyway, Prabhupada came to the United States, and the young people were searching and trying to understand something about the purpose of life. being actually in many cases very inquisitive, very sincerely inquisitive into the ultimate reality and ultimate purpose of life. And inevitably, almost in every case, everyone was misled. If they had any philosophical understanding, it was always from the impersonal point of view. There's no understanding of bhakti yoga, of surrender to the Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The common understanding, if you had some philosophical, mostly there was no philosophy, but some philosophy, they would have the idea that the ultimate is to merge with the one, become one with everything, become one with God. So that also Prabhupada had to de-educate everyone and then re-educate everyone in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada was very direct in his preaching. You can hear Prabhupada's lectures in 26 2nd Avenue in 1966. And you can there's some lectures by Prabhupada that are available before he moved to 26 2nd Avenue, when he was at Dr. Mishra's yoga studio. Dr. Mishra was an impersonalist, but he treated Prabhupada very well. But he would have Prabhupada lead kirtans and sing bhajans to his followers in his yoga studio, but he wouldn't let Prabhupada speak philosophy because he knew that people would be attracted to the personal philosophy. Anyways, you can hear in Prabhupada's lectures from the very beginning that he's just right to the point. You're not that body. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You're suffering in the material world, birth, old age, disease, and death, life after life. If you listen to his lectures from that time, and you'll see that he is speaking on all the most important, most basic, essential points of Krishna conscious philosophy, exactly as Krishna did with Arjuna, and exactly as we have to preach now. We can't beat around the bush. We can be sensitive in our preaching. Like, I don't know what it's like preaching person to person here in India, but definitely in the United States and in Europe. I was just in England at the Bhaktivedanta Manor. And in the United States and England, you have to, you have to be like sensitive. Where is this person coming from? And you have to be very kind of careful. But being careful doesn't mean that you can't be direct. You still have to be very forthright and direct and in a sense, demanding. When Prabhupada started preaching, you can hear in his tone of voice that I always recommend to everyone, definitely in the United States, and here I always recommend it. Of course, reading Prabhupada's books is the most fundamental thing. Everything depends on Prabhupada's books. Everything that we do, everything that ISKCON depends on Prabhupada's books. But listen to his audio lectures. Listen to his morning walk conversations with his disciples and with other people like the doctors on Juhu Beach in Mumbai. Listen to those. And listen to interviews with television reporters. Listen to his room conversations. Listen to his audio recordings, and you hear the strength you can understand Prabhupada's strength to whatever degree we're capable of understanding. We can understand to some extent just the strength and determination and the power of Prabhupada just by hearing his voice. It's so important to hear him speak, and it gives complete assurance of his conviction and how I should have conviction in his words and understand that this is only the absolute truth. It's only for my benefit, and there's nothing else that matters in this world except, or any world, there's nothing else that matters except to follow Prabhupada's teaching in his purports and his lectures in disciplic succession. Prabhupada, of course, always emphasized, I'm not speaking independently, I'm not making anything up. It's like I heard about this one famous person in India now, Sadhguru, and I was curious. I listened to some of his lectures for like about 10 or 15 minutes one day, and he's just pulling everything out of thin air. Like, where did he get that from? Where did he get that? It's like, and once in a while he'll refer to the Bhagavad Gita or something, or just say a few Sanskrit words from some shloka somewhere, but he's just like, I don't know, but he has some potency from maybe some good karma, some yogic perfection in a previous life, so he's attracted the big following, and he has some renown, some fame, but he's not saying anything worth listening to. In fact, he's misleading everyone. There's one story of Prabhupada when he was in Philadelphia one time, and like probably 1972 or something like that. And the temple president's name was Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, a very early disciple of Prabhupada. And him and his wife, they live in Mayapur now. They're elderly and in bad health. But at that time, he was young, and he was the temple president, and Prabhupada was visiting there, and all these, wherever Prabhupada went, the temple presidents or the GBC would invite scholars or big men to come see him and meet him. And Prabhupada liked that. He wanted that. So there was this one, and Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, he went to this one university, Temple University in Philadelphia. He wasn't, he was graduated now, but he had gone there, and he knew this one professor, and Indian man, is a professor of, and he went, and a lot of the big guns in ISKCON were there too, like Brahmananda Swami, and I don't know all of them, but a lot of the early big guns in ISKCON were there, and they're very powerful people, and so they were all sitting in the room, the darshan room, and Prabhupada was talking to the Indian professor, and Prabhupada asked him, what do you teach? And I think he said Hinduism. And Prabhupada said, what is Hinduism? And professor is like, I don't know, you tell me. And Prabhupada was disgusted. and Swarup Damodar Maharaj was there, and Prabhupada turned to him. This is not the whole story. There's many details, but I'm given the basics as I heard it. And Prabhupada turned to Swarup Damodar Maharaj and he said, "What do we call someone who's teaching but they don't know?" And Swarup Damodar said, "Cheater, Prabhupada. He's a cheater." And Prabhupada liked it. He liked it. That's what he wanted him to say. And then the professor was like, started arguing back and forth with Prabhupada, and he was all flustered, and he said, he got kind of offensive, and he was definitely getting to the point of being offensive to Prabhupada. So Brahmananda Swami, at the time when he was young, he was just big. He wasn't real tall. He's not real tall, but he was powerful. And he went over to the professor and he said, "You should come with me." And the professor said, "What? I have said something offensive?" And Brahmananda Swami said, "Before you do." And he led him out of the room. And then the next morning, Prabhupada was going for his walk. They were driving him in a car somewhere to go on the walk, and Ravindra Swarup Prabhu was got in the back of the car, and some of the Brahmananda, some of the other big guns, they were in the car, and Prabhupada was in the car. And Ravindra Swarup, he apologized to Prabhupada for bringing, and because his godbrothers, they were tough people, heavy, and they were criticizing him, like, "You brought that man to meet Prabhupada, and how could you do?" They were getting on him pretty bad, and he felt really bad about it, and he apologized to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, I forget exactly what he said. He told, Ravindra Swarup Prabhu told me, but I forget it. But he said, "It's okay. It doesn't matter. He's very good. It's okay." And then, so of course he felt better. And then the third part of the story is the Ravindra Swarup. This is like 20 or 30 years later, and he had gone back to that university for something, meeting with somebody or something, and he met the same professor, and it was at least 20 years later, maybe 30, and the professor came up to him, and now he was like really nice, and he was like, I can't remember, but he was very apologetic for the incident many years before, and I think he even said, "I have to check on this. I better not say it till I'm sure." But anyway, he was very nice and very apologetic to him. So that's so anyway, being chastised, even if even if something improper is done, it's not the end of the world. Even a big offense can be nullified, forgiven by a pure devotee. And this person was corrected over the years by the super soul in his heart and by his own sincerity. I'm sure he was very nice. And so he got Prabhupada's mercy. But in that case also, Prabhupada was very direct. What do we call a person who says he's a teacher, but he doesn't know? He's a cheater. And Prabhupada, there's no nonsense, no beating around the bush. Just tell it like it is. Tell it straight. And that's what we need. That's what every conditioned soul needs. There has to be, inevitably, no matter how nice you are to someone, how considerate of their feelings and their sensitivities when you're preaching to a new person, we have to do all that. But inevitably, if a person has any sincerity, any determination, any desire to understand Krishna consciousness and read Prabhupada's books or come to classes and hear about Krishna, sooner or later, generally it's sooner, there will be some shock therapy administered either by devotees directly or definitely in Prabhupada's purports. You read something like, every conditioned soul is envious of Krishna, and every condition, oh, that means me. I'm envious. I remember the first time I went to the temple, I had already read the Bhagavad Gita, and I knew that this is the Bhagavad Gita is the absolute truth. But I went to the temple, and one devotee preached to me, and he said, he told me what I hadn't heard before, hadn't heard and taken in yet, that we're in the material, we're all in the material world because we're envious of Krishna, envious of God, and we wanted to take God's place. We wanted to be the independent enjoyer rather than to surrender to Krishna and serve Krishna willingly. So everyone is envious, you're envious of Krishna. And I remember sort of thinking, kind of vaguely, but thinking that envy of Krishna, I don't know who Krishna is. And how am I envious of Krishna? And envious of God. I was raised in an atheist family, and I didn't even, I wasn't like a committed atheist or anything. I just didn't care. God, I don't know. I just didn't care one way or the other. And I remember thinking, I'm envious of God. I'm envious of Krishna. Krishna is God. And I'm envious of, I don't know. But anyway, it was a shock to me, and I had to be shocked. You have to be shocked into awareness of the situation. The same point, like if you go to the doctor and you have a very serious disease, and the doctor just says, oh, just take a couple of aspirin every day, don't worry about it, just take a couple of aspirin and come back and see me in 6 months. But in that 6 months, you have this terrible disease and you're going to die. And so if a doctor says something like that to you when you have a serious disease, then he's not helping you. He's hurting you. He has to tell you, no, you got this, you got kidney disease, or you got cancer, or you got whatever, you got this really serious thing, and you need some really serious treatment starting yesterday, or at least starting today. And if you don't get it, you're going to die. So, preaching, it's like that. We do a disservice. We don't want to do a disservice. Same point over and over, I'm making the same point. But it is very, very important. It is an essential part of preaching. And everyone has to hear it sooner or later. And everyone has to come to grips with reality You have to come to grips with the truth that first of all, God exists, and and Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am His eternal servant. I'm not independent. I'm not the independent enjoyer. I'm only the eternal servant of God, and that's my only business, my only duty, my only reality of my life. That's what I am. I'm a pure spirit soul, eternal part and parcel of Krishna, and I'm 100%, or as Prabhupada said, 100% obligated to the Supreme Personality, to Krishna. And just this last point, the devotees of Krishna should not only merely accumulate material wealth, but should distribute the opulences of Lord Krishna in such a way that the Krishna consciousness movement spreads unlimitedly. And just a point on preaching and book distribution in particular, or asking people for donations for the temple, definitely in the United States, and book distribution. Sometimes devotees are a little hesitant or shy to ask people to give money. Money is so dear to the conditioned soul, and people, devotees, sometimes they're like afraid to ask, like, how can I ask him for money? But if you're asking for yourself, then no, you shouldn't ask them for money, unless you're desperate. You beg. There's nothing wrong with a desperate person begging, but if you ordinarily, you don't just ask people for money just for yourself, if you're any kind of honorable person. So, but for Krishna, the example I give, we have the total right and duty and obligation, just like a tax collector has the tax collector comes to your house and says, you owe the government such and such amount of money, and that he has every right to do that, and you have every obligation to pay him what you owe. You say, oh, he's just a person. Why you coming to my door? You're just some random guy off the street. Why should I give you my money? Because he says, I'm an internal revenue service servant, and I represent the United States there, whatever government it is, and you didn't pay your taxes, so you have to pay me. And so we're Krishna's tax collectors, and we have every right to ask people for donations. And I don't know what it's like distributing books here in India, but I know what it's like in the United States, and sometimes devotees are a little shy about that. But we shouldn't be shy. Everything belongs to Krishna. Everything means everything. Everything doesn't mean everything except my car and my money. Everything doesn't mean everything except my time and my body. Everything means everything. Every molecule, every atom, every rupee, every dollar, every ray of sunshine, everything. Everything belongs to Krishna, and everything is meant to be used in Krishna's service. So let's do it, and let's preach boldly, with sensitivity. We have to be sensitive. We have to be understanding and sensitive to the people we preach to, but we have to be direct. We have to like that. So, okay, so I guess that's enough. Anyone have any questions or comments on anything?
Hare Krishna. If devotees have question, raise hands and send the mic.
Hare Krishna.
Can you share some of your experiences of distribution? Some
Oh,
experiences. Because book marathon is going on for devotees.
Book distribution, and the only place I distributed books is in the United States. And I wasn't a good book distributor. For periods of time, I could go out and do it fairly well, but wasn't like a really good book distributor. Generally, I'd end up, after a few months or a while, I'd end up back in the temple washing the pots again. I was really good at that. But I was out mostly doing book distribution for about 3 years, which is substantial. But it's like Pyari Mohan Prabhu was just here recently. Him and his wife distributed books for many years, and they were like Pyari Mohan was on the Radha Damodar book distribution party for 10 years under Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and he was one of the leaders on that party, and he's an extremely determined person, very powerful, very strong. I wasn't like that. I could do something, but not like that. And so book distribution it requires so much surrender, especially, definitely in the United States, where people are generally not very nice. I mean, they're okay. There's a lot of decent people, but decent by whatever our standard in the United States. But people, they're not very tolerant, not very nice in general. Very extremely selfish, and very intolerant. And so to go up to those people one after another for several hours, all day long, you dropped off in a big parking lot of a big shopping center at after the morning program, after the prasadam at maybe 10 o'clock in the morning, and out there all day till 6 o'clock at night. The Sankirtan leader comes and picks you up again. And sometimes, it's in the winter or the summer. Winter is very cold. Summer can be not as hot as here, but it can be uncomfortably hot for us who are accustomed to that kind of heat. And so, I know this one time, one Sankirtan leader I had, we came out, we drove to some shopping areas 2 hours from the Boston Temple, and and he was very determined devotee. His name was Sadashiva Das. Very great, very nice devotee. And so he took me and 2 other devotees out, and he dropped us off in our parking lots, and then it was time for him to get out in the same parking lot I was in, and he forgot his winter coat. And it was I think it was about, I don't know, not much more than 30 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 0 degrees centigrade, right? So it's a pretty cold day. And he just had a shirt on, pants and socks, but no coat, no nice coat. And but he went out and he in the parking lot all day and went up to one person after another all day long, distributed books. And there's so many stories. Devotees would be out on traveling Sankirtan party were common in those days. There's still some traveling Sankirtan parties in the United States now, but not many. But back then there were many. Each temple had some, and 5 or 6 men, or sometimes women, would go out in a van and live in the van, or sometimes rent a motel room at night, and but mostly live in the van, cook outside of the van in a camping area in the morning, have the whole morning program in the van, and live in the van for for weeks or months, or on and off for years. And sometimes I never did this, but there were stories about devotees up in like Chicago or Detroit in the winter. It's at the northern part of the United States, just south of the Canadian border. And the winter there is like really cold, and like maybe 0 degrees Fahrenheit or even colder. And I remember one winter, well, I won't talk, but and there's stories of them taking bucket showers outside in the dark at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to do their morning program in the bath in the van, and pouring buckets of freezing cold water in like 0 degrees Fahrenheit. I never did that, but there's so many stories of things like that. One time I went out on traveling Sankirtan, and a devotee dropped me off in one parking lot, I think in Syracuse, New York. And I struggled a lot on Sankirtan. I wasn't the most powerful Sankirtan devotee you ever saw by any stretch of the imagination. And but I tried to do it. I did the best I could, and I knew what I was doing. I knew what was the point. I knew we had to do it. I knew this is what Prabhupada wants, and this is my duty. This is what I have to do. So I tried to do it. I wasn't very good at it, and this one day he dropped me off in this parking lot, and I started going around distributing books, Back to Godhead magazines, or maybe small books, Perfection of Yoga or Beyond Birth and Death. And mostly we didn't do big books, hardcover books, and some devotees did, but mostly we'd do like Back to Godhead magazines and the small softcover books. So I was going around, I was going up to people. The thing what you do is you go up to them when they're in their car, or when they're about to get in their car, and you knock on the window and you go like that, and you try to talk to them, and you distribute a book, try to distribute a book and get a donation. So anyway, I was trying to do that, and there was this other distributor in the same parking lot, but he wasn't a devotee book distributor. He was there's a communist group in the United States, and he was distributing their magazine. It was called Solidarity. And so he was going around in the same parking lot as me. And it was a cold day, not real cold, but it was winter. And I was already pretty fried. I was struggling. I was having a hard time. And what he started doing was every time I'd go up to somebody's car to talk to them, he'd come up behind me, and he'd say, like, "Don't give him any money. You know, they use it for drugs." And so obviously they wouldn't give me any money or listen to me. And so I was going up to quite a few people, and he was following and talking to all of them, and it was really getting pretty disturbing, and I was already disturbed, and he was a lot bigger than me, and so we were off in the parking lot somewhere, and I did a really stupid thing. I tried to fight with him, and I don't know if I hit him or not, because the next thing I knew, I woke up in the parking lot, on my back in the parking lot. I woke up, and there was a crowd of people around me because he had knocked me out. And anyway, I woke up for a minute, and then I think I went out again, and they took me to the hospital. But I was okay. And they took me home, and the next day they put me on a bus back to Boston to wash pots in the kitchen. And I was happy. You know, I was kind of ashamed of myself because I couldn't do the book distribution. Book distribution is very austere. There's one statement, I don't know, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it says, if you just see the face of a non-devotee, you should immediately run and jump in the Ganges, in Ganga, and take your bath. If you just see their face. And so book distribution and outside of India, you see nothing but demonic people. And some of them, there are many nice demons, but to be absorbed in sense gratification, to be it's all about me, is the essence of what it means to be a demon. So in book distribution, you're approaching everybody, talking to them. You have to really interact with them closely, one person after another, all day long, day after day after day, and it's very austere. It's very difficult. But the devotees like P.R.A. Mohan Prabhu and his wife, they did it for so many years. And there are many, many devotees like that in the United States and all over the world. It's not like it's easy to be a book distributor just because you're in India. It's still the Sankirtan Jagya, the austerity of performing book distribution. It's not that it's easy. It's still demanding. So, yeah, so we have to do it. Preaching is demanding service. It's not take it easy service. We're meant to push ourselves and try as hard as possible. Okay, anything?
You said that you came in Krishna consciousness when you were 18 years old. Now you are more than 75 years. So what inspired you to continue so many years in Krishna consciousness? How you
could? I understood from the beginning, as soon as I read the Bhagavad Gita as it is, that Krishna consciousness is the absolute truth. And that this is what I have to do. This is what I have to do with my life. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was 18 years old. I was just like, I don't know. My parents were scientists, and my brother and sister went into the same kind of fields. And I thought, well, I don't know. I don't want to do that. I can't do that. I didn't know what to do. But as soon as I read the Bhagavad Gita as it is, I knew that this is the absolute truth. And I knew that I had to be like the devotees. I had to be like the devotees in the temple who shave their heads and chant Hare Krishna on the street. I knew that's what I had to do, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. It took me 5 years of still trying to get some sense gratification and not being able to go live in the temple, not being able to surrender, or not, I was able, I could have, but not surrender, just literally not surrendering. And I knew that it was wrong, and I knew that there was no joy, no pleasure in sense gratification, but I was still trying for sense gratification, getting a little bit of sense gratification once in a while. But in the midst of that, once you know that sense gratification is the opposite of Krishna consciousness, then even if you get some sense gratification, you can't enjoy it. If you're in material life and you get sense gratification, you're like, yeah, this is good, this is good. And you find some taste there, and you think, it's good, I got it, it's good. But if you're already a devotee, you're meant to be a devotee, and you don't even get that. Even if you have the sense gratification, you're like, oh, geez, I know this is bad. I know this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. But anyway, I was in that halfway situation, always going back to the temple, but then always going back home. What I thought was home. I know anyway, I better cut it a little shorter, but always going back to the temple. And finally, after 5 years of struggle like that, one of the devotees preached to me, and he goes, listen, Bhakta Mike, you've been coming for a long time. Somebody I knew really good, the temple commander there, his name was Kardama Muni, he's still active down in Florida. And anyway, he liked me. He knew me. And they all liked me. They all knew me. I knew everyone. He goes, listen, Bhakta Mike, you've been coming for years. You either get a job and give all your money to the temple, or move in the temple. And I was like, I don't want to get a job. And that's when I moved in the temple. And at that time, almost all the devotees lived in the temple. Now, almost all the devotees lived in the temple. And so I moved in the temple. And every time after that, I struggled. Definitely struggled the first few years, at least the first 3-4 years in the temple, because it's very demanding. It was very demanding to live in the temple, working hard every day, up sleeping. I had never slept on the floor before. I had never taken a cold shower in the morning before. I had never worked hard all day before, every day, and never tried to to neglect my false ego before. I never tried to do that. Never tried to neglect sense gratification before. The physical parts of living in a temple are difficult enough, but the real part of it, the surrender, to Krishna is what's really difficult, of course. And every time I thought I was going through so much difficulty, but every time I thought, well, I know I'm going through difficulty here in the temple, but I know it's the absolute truth. I know what I have to do with my life, and I know for a fact that if I tried to go back out in the material world and try to live independently again, I know I'm going to suffer again really bad. And so, because I had that experience for 5 years. So, and it wasn't just avoiding the negative, although that was a part of it, a strong part of it. The main thing was that I knew this Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada is his pure devotee representative, and my only duty, my only purpose in life is to serve Krishna and would give everything I have. And yeah, so that's how I stayed forever. There is nothing else. There is no life outside of Krishna consciousness. The material world, I don't know if they're common now, but in like 20, 30 years ago in the United States, there were all these movies about zombies. Anybody familiar with the zombie movies? But the zombies they were people, but they get bitten by another zombie, and then when all they can do is walk straight forward and look for another person to bite and eat. And that's all they can do. They can't do anything else. They can't think. They can't talk. They can't do anything else. They're not alive. They're zombies. So life outside of Krishna consciousness, definitely in the United States, is basically a zombie life. It's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do today? I'm going to eat. I'm going to get sense gratification. I'm going to. That's all they can do. They basically can't think at all. Some rudimentary thought processes and philosophical inquisitiveness sometimes, but it's more or less, by devotee standards, it's not life at all. It's the land of the walking dead, zombie life. So, yeah, the only life is life. Of course, everyone is alive. Everyone is an eternal, pure, eternal spirit soul. No, everyone is alive, but without Krishna consciousness, the mentality of the life is so constricted that you can't, you practically have no freedom, practically no independence, you practically have nothing. You're alive, everyone is alive, but you're almost not alive. You're all like comatose, sort of. So the only life is in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
In the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada is saying devotees of Lord Krishna should not merely accumulate material wealth, but should distribute for the propagation of Krishna consciousness unlimitedly. So from the very childhood we grew up to get high material degrees, and then the purpose of high material degrees is to make a lot of money. And if somehow we come in contact with the devotees, they are merciful, we start chanting 16 rounds, follow regulative principles, we get initiated also. But that attachment to earn a lot of money and to accumulate money doesn't go. So we give some to But
Yeah.
how to increase that surrender?
Well, first of all, the main thing is we have to know, and it's not hard to know. It's all through Prabhupada's books and lectures. It's all through everything. We have to know that we're meant to use everything in Krishna's service. We have to know that. Everybody knows that. All the devotees know that. And we just have to take it seriously and surrender as much as possible. And we can, I always mention this point that all the devotees are essentially, philosophically, our whole philosophy is a philosophy of sannyas. Householder, whatever status of life you're officially in, varna, ashram, whatever you're officially in, we're all essentially sannyasis philosophically. We all know nothing belongs to me. Nothing belongs to me. This coat doesn't belong to me. My body doesn't belong to me. Nothing, my money doesn't belong to me. My house doesn't belong to me. My wife, my kids, they don't belong to me. Nothing belongs to me. Everything belongs to Krishna. And everything is meant to be used in Krishna's service. Philosophically, we're all extremely renounced, and we all know that. It's not a mystery. It's not an obscure philosophical point. It's right there in black and white, and in every lecture of Prabhupada's and all the devotees who preach. Everything belongs to Krishna. So we just have to, all the devotees are great souls. And that's one thing I understood more and more in recent years, that just how good all the devotees are. But we can do better. We can do better. We can sacrifice more. We can surrender more. We can chant more. We can do everything. We can become more pure, stronger in our desire. Everything we can do more. All the devotees are already great souls, but we can do more, and we want to do more. So it's like, it's so. When a man falls in love with a woman, or a woman falls in love with a man, they want to do more for their husband or wife. The parents want to do more for their kids. They strain, they work hard, they strive like anything to do more and more and more for their kids and for each other. So we can just be like that increasingly with our spiritual master and with Krishna. We can surrender more when it's very simple. And we just have to keep trying, keep pushing ourselves. Krishna consciousness is a long process. It can be a second, like King Kurashekar, or when Lord Chaitanya toured South India, everyone he met, he immediately gave them pure love of Krishna, and anyone they met got pure love of Krishna. But generally, in our experience, in my experience, the development of Krishna consciousness takes time. and time. So we're in this for the long run. We're committed. We're not. It's not like a 5-year program or a 10-year program or even a lifetime program. But we're in this for the long haul. And Krishna, everything takes time. Pray for strength. Yesterday, when we went to Ultadanga, I was praying to Krishna to make me stronger. And like I grew up in the temple with Naranjana Swami, and I've known Satsvarup Maharaj, and a second initiated disciple of him, known him since 1970. And so many other devotees who are just, I know Radhanath Swami, some, and so many devotees over the years who are so just strong, powerful people. And I'm not like that. I'm not that strong. But yeah, so we have to pray to Krishna. I was praying yesterday at Ultadanga, to Bhaktisiddhanta and to Srila Prabhupada, I can become stronger. And yeah, so we can pray for the strength to surrender more. Yeah. And we should do that. We should try hard. But even the most devotee who's not very strong, I know from my own experience that Krishna is very kind to all his devotees, and he loves all of us, all of his, everyone, all his parts and parcels, but certainly all his devotees who are trying to surrender, and he's pushing us, pulling us, urging us, dragging us. Yeah, so we should pray for strength and determination. Okay, I think we should stop. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhu. All glories to the Newtown devotees.